Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with another episode of Kerbal Space Program. Last episode we had a scenario. It went by just fine. It was a very short episode. We were going to do another episode, Impending Impact, and we couldn't do it because the just general game messed up again. I'm having to basically reinstall this after every single episode. And that's ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous to ever have to reinstall a game. To have to do it after every single scenario makes no sense. Anyways, we're going to be doing Impending Impact. We're just going to try to avoid the moon and get back to Earth. So, it loaded, as it does. At the very least, I will give them some tiniest amount of points for the fact that when you reinstall, it has never given me any kind of trouble towards after that. So I have a tiny engine. This is the Ant engine. So let's look at our current trajectory. I think what we are in here is, I think what we probably want to do is just burn prograde and see if we can get our apoaxis perhaps is here lower. What if we no. Okay. That's 150 meters. That's 750 meters. That's 600 meters. I don't need to do any of that. 54 meters. So I don't quite want to do 54 meters. And I don't quite want to do 80 meters. 70 meters. 67 meters. Good. So the node is in 7 minutes. Let's target maneuver. Target that maneuver with our SAS. And then let's just go ahead and start burning. Am I burning? Or have I not activated my thing? Just gonna activate the engine. Estimated burn. Alright, this is moving too fast. A little bit faster. So basically all I'm trying to do is get this down to below 70 meters of Kerbal and not hit the planet. Almost certainly not going to hit the moon. But we're going to use it. Once we get into below 70, we should be in a degrading orbit, which means the atmosphere will slow us down. And then as it slows us down, we'll probably do one loop, and after that one loop, our orbit will be even smaller, and then on the second loop, we probably will be slowed down enough that we'll come down to Kerbal safe and sound. At least that's the hope. We have like 4 meters of fuel, so adjusting is going to be close to impossible. Might even want to get this below 60 meters, 60 kilometers, as it were. Kerbal perhaps. Now these are estimates, so hopefully they're going to be right. We're not using tons of the fuel either, so it's not like the 3 isn't going to be enough. If this works, it will be enough. If we have to make adjustments at other points, however, it's not. This is a basic slingshot maneuver. I don't know if there's such thing as an actual basic slingshot maneuver, but it is the maneuver. It is slingshotting ourselves around the moon to get back to the planet using the least amount of fuel, which is a tiny amount of fuel. I mean, we've been given way more fuel in some of the training scenarios and not succeeded. Through some fault of our own, but mostly through just bad guidance. So I think I want to get this down to 60. Just right there. Okay. So we don't need the maneuver anymore. We've got this down to 60. This should work. Let's speed up. We're going to hit that in 26 minutes. So let's warp there. And this is where we enter the sphere of influence of the moon, which makes little sense. We're going to be 400 kilometers away. So we enter the sphere of influence of the moon, which seemed to be close to nothing like what we thought it was going to look like. But it worked, I suppose. So let's just speed this up. Now we're trying to leave the sphere of influence. The sphere of influence is quite large of the moon for not being a huge planet. Come on, speed up, speed up. 50 times speed. It seems like nothing. So when you have the time here we go, 59. We did it. So we can just go ahead and warp here, I suppose. But a lot of, if you're sending a satellite out and it takes years and years and years for something to reach its course. That's fine, but in reality, if you were sending actual people that had to have food and heat and water, it's pretty difficult. And there are mods that require you to actually add weight so that you actually are close to that. So that you actually have to account for those things. But that just makes Kerbal Space Program uh, even more difficult. So what you watch here is we're at 13 million meters for the apoaxis. And that's how I'm going to always pronounce it. So when we start getting down below 70, you're going to start seeing that this goes down. So notice now, this is starting to go down. We've hit the atmosphere. It's just the very thinnest part of the atmosphere. If we want to go to staging, you're just right here, even though anything below here is technically the atmosphere, so anything below the top line. So that is braking us, air braking us. It has lowered this down to a little bit, but it's going to lower and kind of circularize this. Uh, so we're just gonna, it's not gonna slow us down enough on the first cycle. I'm pretty sure. We've got a long way to go here. So we can go to 4x, which is as far as we can go right now. Once this stops getting smaller, we lost about 13 million meters in our apoaxis. Let's see, once we are back a little bit higher, we can warp here. Let's see. Let's see, escape to cancel. We can start warping faster, and we'll just warp here. That would be another 2 days of circling around the planet. So if you were really trying to keep things alive, your crew members alive, and you had to feed them, another 2 days to do it is a lot. Now we're back to too close, and we're into the lower atmosphere, and we're slowing down some more. How many loops are we going to do is the question. I thought we'd only do 1, but we've already done 2. We're probably going to do 3. And this warp to here ability is nice. I have to give kudos for that, because in all the previous versions of Kerbal Space Program, you could just fast forward yourself, but you would have to sit there and fiddle with the system. So that's loop 3, where you're not getting super lower on the parapsis. It's all just lowering the apoaxis until it will eventually switch, but right about when it switches will probably be the loop that we finally land on the planet. And I guess I could try and target things like the crater. There are some unique things, like here's an island, there might be something there. I haven't been flown all. It'd be easier to build a plane and fly around Kerbal than it would be to try and find the unique areas. However, I believe that the spaceport might be somewhere around there. There might be something on that island. I don't know, this Kerbal Space Center might be somewhere. I know it's on the east coast, so somewhere near the equator. But trying to find it, it's definitely something that you would take some work. Time to warp again. You have to, it still has a bit of a problem. You need to go into slow mode so that you can get all your warps back. One speed mode. And then you click warp here. If you click warp here without having everything unlocked, then you run the problem of you having to hit escape. So I think that was number 3. Loop number 3. But realize we've used no fuel. Normally, I would have to make a maneuver and burn prograde. And that's a minute and about 2-minute prograde burn. That's more realistically, I could do it for about 10 seconds if I felt like it. But if you already used the last of your fuel, which we have seen in many scenarios is the case, why not use the air brake? In fact, why not use the air brake anyways so you have fuel that can slow you down when you're about to land, so you don't destroy your ship or kill your crew. When you're playing career mode, you want to keep all your ships together and get as many parts back as you can. That way you can not have to spend as much money. Alright, so that's warp 4 or 5. I've kind of lost time. We've, on the upper axis, gone halfway. It is taking longer than I thought it would. Watch the ship's altitude. Once it gets above 70 again, that's when we can warp again. But this is still way faster. This is where I have been saying that Kerbal Space Program takes forever. Doing things like this are the things that take forever. How many days has it been? 5 days. So it's been 5 days since this flight began, or the scenario began, at least. Did you pack 5 days worth of food and water in that tiny ship? Now, it will get exponentially smaller as it becomes a more and more round orbit. But this is still taking a while. And this really gets to where Kerbal Space Program starts to become a little bit of a boring game. I hate to use that term, but it's kind of true. The way you would alleviate this boredom is you'd leave a ship here for its 10 days already air braking thing, and you would go back to your spaceport and work on another ship, start another mission, and have multiple things going at the same time. But the whole time manipulation, when you warp somewhere, time is going further for everybody. So on that second mission, as soon as you start warping, you might very easily forget about this guy and he'll just crash to the planet by himself without any guidance to ever release his parachute. And you can't just release the parachute. You can set up action groups, I think, that would have the parachute release by itself and just try and automate the system. I suppose you could do that. That's a moderately advanced concept. And but I guess that would work. That is definitely how the space agencies work, though, is that they're always working on different projects, always launching rockets, as many as they can during their um, as much as they can be funded to do. Let's see. And then the music changes. Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem here with the air braking is that the music it turns into space music when you're in space, and different music when you're not in space. So it's coming on and going off, if you've noticed that. And it's a cool effect, except for when you're doing a maneuver like this. As we get lower and lower into the atmosphere, it will come, we will start um, slowing down significantly faster. Even this though is still too too much. This is too long. We avoided the moon. It would have been pretty difficult to hit the moon, even on a collision course. It's pretty easy to adjust. Notice that that part was not the difficult part. This when most people do Kerbal Space Program, they edit a lot, and I don't really have the capabilities to edit pre-recorded videos. The way it works on YouTube is weird. Like, if your video is over 2 hours, you can't edit it. If it's under 2 hours, you can, which kind of makes no sense whatsoever. It's probably just a limitation of their hardware and software, but it makes no sense. So I would have to creatively edit this, and I probably will. Um, and this would be a point where I would say, well, that's the end of the episode. I'll see you when we're just about to land. And then this whole loops stuff. It's been 13 days. It's not fast. It is definitely not fast air brake. It would have been 10 seconds, a 10-second burn to go just the opposite and lower self. So if you do, for some reason, want to do it fast, if you feel you have enough fuel to actually, in any way, uh, uh, do if you have enough fuel to slow yourself down and it won't affect anything. It really is kind of the situation. If we look here at what we've got, the little ant here has just a thrust of nothing and a specific impulse of 315 whatever's per second. Uh, so that's really, really slow and pretty much won't do anything in the atmosphere to slow us down. So more than likely it would be smarter. Let's see. But I want to continue with this because I want to see how many days. It's been, I think that says 17 days? Hit escape and then warp there. It recalculates how fast you can warp only when you're in first player mode. And you can actually cause different physics because the physics in this game are kind of guesstimated when you get to larger scales. that it will actually, you might have actually hit something or been affected by the gravity slightly different if you were in one mode versus if you were in 4x mode. Let's see. I've lost count. I think that was loop 8 or 9. The upper axis is still 3 million meters up, but considerably less than what it was to begin with. And as it puts us for longer times in the atmosphere, we are there longer, we lose height for a longer distance. Pretty much to the point where we will have both the apoaxis and the paraxis in the atmosphere. And if we had enough thrust going, we could try to maintain an orbit in the atmosphere, which would be horribly fuel inefficient to do that. But it's theoretically possible. If you had an infinite amount of fuel, you could be in orbit just a foot or so off the ground. Just have to be going really, really fast to get past all the drag of the atmosphere. And there's the music cutting off again. They need a better algorithm there to realize just play the music if you're going to play the music. Once the music is done, has done its loop, fade it out, give a few minutes of silence, but not too much silence to the point where it's noticeable, and then fade in the next song based on whatever conditions. Minecraft does that, and it works pretty good. Here, it just plays the music as soon as you hit about 75,000, maybe 70,000, but let's see. Are we at 16 days now? So over 2 weeks, most of which is just flying around in circles. And if you were setting up a mission like this, you'd have the ship just loaded with experiments to keep them busy and to try to collect as much actual science records you can make. One thing that Scott Manley does, and he does it with an external video editing software, so which also takes a lot of his time, and it pretty much explains why he only plays maybe one or two other games, because he spends all of his time on this, whereas I play lots and lots of other games. And again, that's why I feel that doing too much a Kerbal Space program would be a mistake. And pretty much doing any of it, I used to feel would take too long. But yeah, he'll put it in warp mode here, and then he'll fast forward it on top of that. And I just don't have the capability of that. Wonder what this MET button does. Guess I shouldn't hit buttons unless I know what they do. MET. Or LFT. One of these says 1 year. Have we been in the on this ship for a year? No, I don't believe that. But that says 15 days. I can read that one. Doing a lot more loops than I realized. I did not realize this was going to take this long. This is a good example of what uh, how doing a recording of Kerbal Post program can go wrong is if we just sit here and watch it. And I would certainly edit this out if this wasn't kind of the main point. Excuse me. I guess I can use the music as an example of when to warp again. And as soon as the music cuts off, that's when I have to reset the warp. I guess if I just warped here right now, I could probably save myself some button clicks because it will just hopefully automatically speed up as we get further away. We're down below 2 million meters on our upper axis. We've only gone about 1,000 meters lower on our periapsis. We don't want the periapsis too low. If we hit the periapsis too low, we would just come in and hit the thicker part of the atmosphere, get a ton of drag, and probably come in very fast. It's the point of doing this that may not be completely apparent is that yeah, that doesn't work. The point of doing this is to slow ourselves down. And we have here at when we're coming towards the planet, we're coming in at nearly 3,000 meters per second. And that is way, way too fast to successfully land. And if we were just coming straight down, we want to slow ourselves down as much as possible. And with every one of these ridiculous loops, that's what we're doing. That's why the upper axis is coming down, because the force that we have, the speed that we have as we're falling towards the planet, is getting reduced here, slowing ourselves down as it slingshots us back up. The upper axis here is the least amount of our speed, and we start gaining speed once the gravity starts pulling us back down. So another warp. Well, at about 1.5 million meters on our upper axis, and we're still only a couple thousand on the periapsis. The periapsis is slightly going down as you look at it, but it's kind of just by 1 or 2 meters. Now, the faster you come down in an atmosphere, the more you're going to heat up and burn too. So by doing this and slowing ourselves down, we are actually going to have a smoother ride when we finally do start our descent. But it doesn't, this isn't going to do like 20, well, maybe 20 more loops, but it's not going to do 100 more loops, and then just ever so slowly lower the alpha axis down to 0 and then we'll land. It's going to start getting into thicker and thicker parts of the uh, atmosphere. And when we get into the thick parts of the atmosphere, the orbit is just going to decay completely to the point where we're going to start landing. It's going to get exponentially smaller and smaller. I've said that it doesn't really feel exponential though. It feels more a multiple of something. I wish there was a way to play music that wouldn't cut on and cut off. That would be nice. But the whole music thing in YouTube does not work very well at all. Even the small selection of music that YouTube allows you to use doesn't really work, in the sense that I could just have it and have it playing. Uh, you basically have to replace all of your audio with the music. Try to mix it in after the fact instead of mix it in during. And so then you watch people on Twitch who are just playing things off the radio, and they they just don't ever get caught because that's not probably legal where they are living. I haven't considered much of doing Twitch. This would be a game that would probably work well on Twitch if I was going to try and stream, because it is a game that takes a very long time. This episode is getting very talky like my Hearthstone episodes than I thought it was going to be. I miscalculated this. Definitely won't ever do maneuvers uh, like this again on an episode. So, yeah, that is the basic admittance that very important maneuvers that most people should know how they work. I'm just gonna skip them over, and I would just say I'm gonna do an air brake maneuver, and then next episode I'll come back and we'll be ready to land. And, and I'm always making the effort to see if I can break up episodes into shorter things. It seems like, in general, people on YouTube want to have things be as short as possible. I've seen people make videos that are 2-3 minutes long every day, and I'm like, wow, that's really short. But short and to the point is popular, it seems. We're gonna get just below 1 million, I think, this time. Looks like we're about another 1,000 down on the Parapsis. Okay. Maybe we can really start seeing some decline here. I love landing in Kerbal Space Program. Landing is about the best part. I'd say it goes landing, then launching, then construction, then maybe flying before construction. Uh, and I even kind of like driving the rovers when you build those. Uh, I don't like this main part that much though. The whole make a maneuver and adjust that. That whole part of the game is kind of the part I don't like. particularly because it's just so fidgety. It's so fidgety. It's like I would love for them to just say, our computers have calculated your maneuver. Click here to upload it and have it do it. Uh, that is actually the truth of at least how NASA works. Is that while the pilots do need to know how these concepts work, they're not here calculating trajectories and how long burns should be and all of that. They're just typing it into the computer uh, and flying by wire in a lot of ways. Uh, Still not above 70 yet. We're down to 800,000 on our upper axis. Wouldn't surprise me if it got down to 600 this cycle. It is really crazy when you start trying to get to other planets too. I mean, it is getting off Kerbal is a major success. You pretty much should consider yourself a winner of the game. You've beat the game if you can even get the beginning career rockets into orbit of Kerbal. And then everything beyond that should just be considered gravy. If you make it to the moon, that is just you're really good at the game. If you make it to Minmus, you're even better. If you make it to the next planet over, you're even better. But I think for most people, you should consider yourself victorious if you just get off the planet. Uh, in comparison to the real world, we've sent rovers and satellites to other planets, but we really haven't done that much. Um, we got a few crews on the moon, a few people, but the next planet is like Eve, no, Venus, not Eve, Venus, uh, and it's too gaseous for anybody to land on. Or you could go to, I think, Mars. Mars is the next thought of the planet that we think we can actually thrive on if we brought every single thing we needed to thrive with us. That no human has stepped foot on there. I don't think we've sent any kind of animals there. There's no point. One thought that I have is that I think we probably, if we were going to try and go to planets that were in the next uh, closest solar system, it is so far away that we'd have to travel at the speed of light, and it would still take years and years and years to get there. So many years that what would be, it is arguable, it might be a good idea to send rockets now full of seeds and water and fertilizer and try and seed the planets that we are planning on going to, that in the hopes that things will thrive and prosper and grow there and there'll be actual life there that we put there before we arrive. I mean, if it takes you years and years at traveling at the speed of light to get to the next planet, that's going to be hundreds and hundreds of years relative to everybody else. So giving a planet hundreds and hundreds of years to grow mass forests because we seeded them would be great. Then we would have lumber to build houses and buildings and burn for wood and all kinds of things, all kinds of resources that you wouldn't have to particularly carry for yourself. Uh, And if we got really smart and we could genetically engineer trees to grow in the shape of houses, then we don't even have to chop them down. But I don't think we have the capability. Well, we're gonna get it below half a million meters on our upper axis. This line is getting wider and more round. I guess that's not. I guess that kind of is wider. So we're spending more time in the atmosphere. We're down to 5,600 meters. I should have chosen a sharper thing. I should have gone for about 50, and this wouldn't have taken this long. This is taking way too long. But notice we're still losing height even now. Alright. I think we might be in probably the last 10 loops at this point. 451 meters. It's not even letting you go to the next warp. Well, it didn't go to the next warp for some reason. I've totally lost count. If somebody wants to count all these loops and put it down in the comments, that would be great. I would put these planets really, really close to each other in Kerbal. Since you're going to make this solar system, and it's not really going to be the exact measurements and settings as our solar system, since they went down that path, they should just have planets really, really close to each other. Like a million meters away is your next planet, or is your moon, and another million meters away is your next one. It should just be, this is a tiny, tiny solar system full of things that are really, really close to each other. Not realistic at all. That would certainly cause collisions, and uh, the gravities would affect each other and cause everything to mess up. But in a game, when you're going to make your own system, why not do that? Alright. Time to warp again. We're below 400,000 meters. No, I still call them meters, even though they would be kilometers. That was a funny way to mispronounce kilometers. But you go from meters to kilometers to millimeters or megameters, whatever the M would be. You go back and forth so much that it's not um, easy to stay on track. So just sticking with meters helps me. So getting a more and more circular orbit, easier to see from the top-down view now. Slowly going to, once this gets below 70, that's when it's all over. If this gets below 70 and this is below 70, there will be no point at which we won't be in the atmosphere, degrading our orbit. And we're still in the atmosphere at this point, still slowing down. So we just now, on that loop, exited. which means we're going to pretty much enter the orbit pretty soon. A lot sooner too. We might be in the atmosphere even somewhere around here. Let's see. We'll see because it will go down to 4. Yeah. So that's the point where we enter the atmosphere again. This might be in the last 5, I would say, loops. And it's hard to figure out what to talk about with stuff doing so many loops. This was a mistake. I have to apologize. I did not realize that such a shallow slingshot air brake maneuver was going to take that long. Haven't used any fuel, but according to this, 18 days? It's hard to believe. Either it's been 1 year and 19 days or it's been 18 days. And 18 days would just be more fuel, more electricity needed, more water needed, so more fuel, more food needed. This one's getting down to below about 150, maybe we'll get that far. And still in the atmosphere. Still slowly lowering ourselves. We've only gotten down to about 53 on the Parapsis. Alright, they're back in space. So we warp here again for one more loop. I have a hard time believing that this won't be the last one or the second to last one. But then I've been proven wrong a lot in this episode. You can almost get into this peaceful mentality doing Kerbal Space Program. There's nothing shooting at you. There's no real danger when you're just orbiting things. The only danger is making a mistake and crashing. Uh, so it can get kind of peaceful if just sitting around doing nothing. But it also gets very, very long. Very, very long. This is almost, I would make the argument, if for some reason you had a kid that said they wanted to be a rocket scientist, and for some reason you didn't want them to be a rocket scientist, give them this game, and then the truth will be found out real fast. Uh, if they stick through this, if they learn all the tactics, if they're watching Scott Manley and learning all the scientific rocket science stuff, uh, then maybe they are destined to be a great rocket scientist. But if they find this boring and dull, then that's where you say, well, that's the real world. Now we're below 70 on our upper axis, which means there's no way that we're going to make it through a loop. That's below 40. We're going to start slowing down and landing now. 20, 19. We'll go into our staging mode. This is the last loop. Now, there we go. No longer in a stable orbit. No longer in any orbit. We are in a descent path. So, I'm going to go point myself retrograde with the SAS. And that's got me wobbling like crazy. I'm going to put myself in time warp 1 so I stop wobbling. Uh, what do we have here? We have this. We have the command pod. I think at this point is the time to fire up the rockets. trying to slow ourselves down any amount that we can use of our fuel is a good idea for two reasons. One, you don't want to have any fuel when you land because it will explode. And two, it's slowing us down. We are coming in at 2,145 meters per second, which is pretty fast. We don't want those g-forces. We want our vertical velocity to be gone. So that's the end of that. When do I want to deploy the parachute is the question. 40,000, why not? Oh, that crashed into me. Did I not deploy the parachute? Where's the parachute? Oh, come on, parachute. I guess 40,000 is too early to deploy the parachute. So I may have just wasted all of our time. I think it's going to deploy on its own when it feels right. But we hadn't even gotten into the flames yet. So we discarded the oil tank, we discarded the engine. That's all money that would be lost. We are slowing down now that we've hit the middle part of the atmosphere. We're slowing down a little bit just by friction, but our vertical velocity is actually speeding up. So if we land this, there's our chute, and it just tore apart. So it activated at about 15,000, 16,000. Well, that's no good. We're coming down like a rock. The question is, do you want to come down like a rock as a ship, or do you want to jump out? I can jump out at the last second and hit spacebar. Let's try it. We're gonna be coming down close to 200 meters per second, which is far too long. Unfortunately, they don't equip parachutes on astronauts for some reason. I don't know why. Let's see. When do I want to jump? How about now? Jump! Here's your SpaceX rocket jump. Fortunately, the uniforms, the spacesuits are waterproof, obviously. Let's just allow ourselves sit there in massive amounts of pain as we float back to the surface. I don't know if this is really would work jumping out of a falling plane, but it worked here, and he's alive. Mostly because the Kerbals are apparently their bones are made of a nice bouncy jelly, and they're very well protected. So now all I would have to do is swim back to the spaceport, or I can just recover the vessel of my body. Uh, let's see if this lets me go to the Space Center and do any of that stuff because of this being a scenario. So when we look here at the space station, we haven't been in here yet. We're looking for any ships or anything. We have Jebediah Kerman splashed down, and that is it. He's not on the other side of the planet, he's on this side. So the ship that came down, we didn't see it, but it was there, and we can't recover him. I don't know why we can't recover him or go back to him, but at least in this mode it's not letting me. It's also not letting me exit or do anything else. Look, I'm hitting the escape button and this isn't working. It's bugged. Oh no, not another bug. Well, we can watch the planet spin. Spin there like crazy, planet. Anyways, this has been too long an episode. It is a good example of how long Kerbal Space episodes might be. So, be prepared for that. We avoided the moon, and that was all we wanted to do. We got him safely on the planet. We had to do some really crazy things to do that. Would it have been worth it to spend the extra fuel to slow ourselves down and not do air braking at the highest part of the atmosphere? Yes, it would have. It almost... I see now that would totally have been worth it. Would it have been smart not to shoot our air parachute out at the height of 40,000 kilometers or 40 kilometers? Yes, you need to do it at like 20 or 15, it seems like. Anyways, this is how I'm gonna have to end the episode. Can't do anything else. Poor Jebediah Kerman is just going to be forever stuck in the ocean. I would recommend he swims south to this archipelago, I think is what that's called. Let me know in the comments if that's not considered an archipelago. Swim south, and maybe you can build a hut in the forest. Anyways, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for sticking through with it. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps out. If you want to support me, there's two ways you can do that. One is clicking on my name, Rydo. On the right is a blue button that says support this channel. The other way you can do it is click on the Amazon.com affiliate link in the description and just shop normally. If you want to follow or friend me on practically any social media site, all that information is down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.